I'm part of the courts network. And so it was one of the vendors that was there at that time. We only had a benefits manager. And so in just sitting in the leadership meetings, I knew that there were some gaps that we were looking at. And one of the vendors she was looking at, I really didn't convince me. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go see what I can find that's a little bit different. I met with somebody from Rain, hit it off. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. I think we'd be great with this. And then sent our benefits manager some information. And I said, hey, I think this one blows the one that you picked out of the water. Please just meet with them. And then kind of took it from there. His name was Sam Cook. He was great. I met with him through the Quartz Network. We met for maybe like 15 minutes. He asked a lot of questions, looked for gaps within, what we were looking for, provided a bunch of information. And then I said, okay, give me some collateral and then let's see what happens. We met for the very first time in July of last year, and that was an email, but through the Quartz Network, we were communicating through there. I said, let's have you meet with our benefit manager. So what he did was he had a small session with me again outside of that first 15-minute, had a bunch of emails between then and the time that we had like our mini presentation, went through a PowerPoint presentation, asked a lot of questions, gathered some data. Then I had him go in front of Lisa and her team and Anna, who's my senior HR ops director. And he did a similar PowerPoint presentation. I was on that one as well. They asked a bunch of questions and then we tabled it for a little bit. But I was like, "Hey, as soon as I have an answer, I'll let you know." So he was very thorough, very nice, not very pushy. It didn't feel like a sales call, which is what I love when I talk to vendors. I don't want you to sell me your product. I want you to listen and solve my problem. I'm obviously going to you because I think you're something I want to purchase. You don't have
Right.
to sell me on that.
Right.
I need to be heard. I need to be provided information, and I need to feel like you're in it with me. So I think that's one of the best things from Sam when I first talked to him. Like, you build rapport. He built rapport with me before he even said like, okay, now what, right? Because he already knew if I'm reaching out to you, it's because I have a need, and that you're probably going to be able to fill it. Initially, the benefits team was looking for something to alleviate our 401k. You're not allowed to take a loan out of the money that you've put into your 401k. So she would get a lot of requests. Hey, can I take a loan off of my 401k? And we can't. So she's like, look, we have this need. This is the bulk of our phone calls. So I need to get these phone calls off my back. We need to find a product that will be able to provide us this information. So that's kind of where it started from, in that she saw a need to alleviate the inquiries to her. The product that I think she found was similar to like it wasn't a wage advance because it didn't interact with our WFM. It wasn't looking at any of our time cards. It was like a personalized loan through like a third party vendor. And I said, I don't really like that because that's like we might as well just go to a check cashing place. Like that's what we're doing.
Right.
Of course, it was smaller interest to us and everything like that. But as an employee, that to me was like I could just do that anywhere else. Like I'm looking for something different.
Right.
I had heard about Rain, I think through Bamboo HR. I do like their annual webinar. And I had heard about it, but I didn't pay no mind. Then when I went into courts and looked for just employee benefits, I was like, oh, they're going to get half of the money that they would be making. This looks pretty interesting. And then I presented it to Lisa. I don't know that the team was like overly excited at that point, being really IT driven. Like I can see systems and how systems work much easier than big picture. And
Right.
so they were a little hesitant at first. I really didn't understand why. Now that we've implemented, I get it. Like they were worried about the GL and they're worried about how who's going to be responsible and where the liability is. And I was like, guys, it's a system. Like you put it in and you take it out and everything's going to be fine. Like I could see the cogwheels turning. And then little by little, they kept having conversation with the other platform and Rain. And then I said, okay, well, if we're gonna do Rain, we might as well look at because does the same thing, but they do theirs through a pay card. Sat through a conversation with, and it was great. I was like, oh, we have competition here between you and Rain. Then when I put in front of the team, I was like, what happened? Like, it was like like an A presentation to like barely an F presentation. We got off the phone with like a really bad taste, and I was like, guys, I'm so sorry. Like, if I would have known that this is what it was gonna look like, I wouldn't even bother to have the conversation. They couldn't answer a lot of our GL questions. They couldn't tell us who the liability was. Like, it wasn't very transparent. And then they let it go for a couple months. And then I was like, what's up with Rain? And they're like, oh yeah, let's bring that back to life. And then we brought it back to life, and now we're here. The problem they were looking to solve is us not being able to offer loans out of the 401k.
Right. Right.
So this was a solution to that. They're non-existent. Yeah, they'll be, oh, I can't get a 401k loan. Yeah, go to Rain. Or, oh, my manager forgot to put in a punch, so I didn't get paid for a day. Okay, go tell the manager to send payroll an email, but go to Rain and ask for your money. We're not doing off cycles. 100% elimination of off cycles, which for me in payroll is awesome.
Right.
Lisa's still getting the question, but there's enough hourly folks that talk to each other that, like, in this last payroll run, we had 4 new hires. They haven't even been here for 2 weeks and they're already using Rain. So obviously it's working, right? Yeah, once they saw the product, yes. I think it's because I get really excited about things that are innovative because
Yeah.
I love what I do and I love IT and I'm all for change. Like, I don't want to keep doing it the same way forever. So when I see something that's going to be good for our employees, I like get really excited and everybody says, "Okay, calm down. We have to look at the big picture." And I'm like, "I already did that."
Yeah.
They have to see it for themselves because they're going to have their own questions and they're going to have their own concerns. The biggest thing that Anna, our senior director of operations, says is like, "I don't understand how they make money." I said, "Anna, I don't care. I don't care how they make money. That's their problem. I care that I don't have to do an off cycle. Like,
Right.
my problem's solved, right?"
Yeah.
So she's like, I don't get it. I don't understand. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we're changing, for me, this is like, we're changing people's lives. Like
Yeah.
you said, their banks are not, their checks are not bouncing. They're going to be able to feed their kids. Like, when we first implemented, we had a huge hiccup with how people were getting paid and when they were getting their checks and everything. And we had people that had us sobbing. Like, I'm a single mom and I have 3 kids and I have no food for them. Like, what am I going to do? I didn't get my check. And
Right.
then it's like, oh, you have to wait 2 days to get your check.
Right.
Who's going to feed my kids for 2 days? Right. I'm a very I'm not a traditional corporate person. Like, I work because I need to pay my bills and I love what I do, but I'm a human first. So
Yeah.
the human aspect of human resources for me is really, really important. So when I saw that this would be potentially change people's lives and change my work life too,
Right.
to me it was a no-brainer.
Right.
To them, their perspective is a little different. Like, finance's perspective is, well, how am I going to post it on the GL? I don't care that it makes your life, better and that the employers are going to get money. I want to know that I'm going to work smarter. So I understand that every piece of the pie has to kind of see it for themselves.
Right.
But once everybody saw it for themselves, they were like, man, you were right. I'm like, I know. Only that it's really easy. Somebody didn't get their check, a part of their check. Their manager didn't put in PTO for the second week of the check. So they only got half a check. And she was really upset. And I'm like, just go to the Rain. Did you download the Rain app? No, I haven't. Well, just download it and ask for the money. And then within like 10 minutes, she was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. So yeah, I don't want an off cycle. I already got my money. I already paid my $3. We're good. And I said, okay, it's going to be in your next check. And then when she saw her check this time around, she was like, wow, this was pretty easy. That's the only person that I personally talked to or got received feedback from my staff about. But the fact that our new hires are doing it, you know,
Yeah.
there's obviously good feedback. I think the ease of use, Nick and Keith have been awesome. Like, the people that service us make a difference. Um, they're very caring, knowledgeable. They listen, they take notes, and then they get back to us. They also keep us on track. But the ease of use, not only for us, but for our employees. Like, the apps are the future. You can go in an app and look and just request money and you have it instantly. And then there's no interruption of your service to the rest of your organization, right? I think those would be the three things. The fact that it's easy to use for both us and the end user, the fact that your customer service team that's been servicing us has been great, and the fact that, it's where you're gonna eliminate so many questions and so many off cycles and all the things that make payroll a little bit more difficult.